Ladies and gentlemen, we've got more black voters that are going to be voting Republican than we possibly have in the last 50 to 75 years. This is absolutely incredible. Wait until you see this poll. It's going to blow your mind. Let's get right into it.
I want to talk to you about two phenomenons that you've been hitting pretty hard, which is the RFK Tulsi Gabbard endorsements, also black males supporting President Trump. That bounce that we saw materialize for the past year, where Donald Trump is overperforming with black males, particularly younger blacks, that hasn't really, but that is stubborn, and that's sticking with Trump. Kamala hasn't changed that, despite all the cringe outreach that she's done. And the RFK bounce, is that real? Is there such a thing as an RFK bounce? Can you talk us through those two phenomena?
You know, I'm going to, on the RFK issue, and here, well, actually, let's start with the black vote since it's up. This is now. This is recent. This poll will be out soon. Of course, this is like raw, which is actually typically more Democratic. This is the overall black vote. Now, this is an improvement, and I have been telling people for months, yes, Trump is doing better with the black vote against Joe Biden. I think it's a little high, and I think it's going to be, like, in the polling, I think it's a little high, and it'll be on the lower end of the sampling era. This looks a lot more believable to me, and I'm going to tell you why. Black women did go, in large part, move back to Kamala, and Trump is still doing better with them than he did in 2020 and 2016. But black men didn't budge at all. And all those other polls out there that show that he's like down in the low single digits now, they did this last time. They didn't, and I'm telling you, they're going to be wrong. I guarantee you, if they released the difference between male and female, and we saw the age groups, they're overstating females. They're overstating the females who want to take polls, which are a certain age and above. And that's why they were wrong before, and that's why they'll be wrong again. But I mean, this is a healthy,
especially even if you look at just these street interviews and polls, black males are in substantial numbers voting for Donald Trump. I can't understand people that are, voting for Kamala Harris that are black men. They don't have any backbone. I just don't understand them at all. Had a lot of local conversations with people on a one-on-one level. And most of the men that I know will be voting for Trump. The women are coming along. It's taken a while. It's going to be a lot harder to get them to come over to the other side. But for sure, black men at a very substantial high rate are going to be voting for Trump.
Sample, you can't really see the number there, but this is 500 plus interviews with just black voters alone, not 200, not 150 like you see in media polls. Yeah, I mean, there it is. That's 524 interviews with just black voters alone. And if you look at females, he's a little bit above, about 12%, which is down from where it was against Biden. But among black men, he didn't move at all.
Let me tell you right now, all those undecided people at the end, I think will be swung over to the Trump side, because it's going to boil down to the economy, women's rights, which Trump has now come out and said that he is going to not be any part of Project 2025, and he's going to be helping women with abortion rights and making sure IVF is free. So that should motivate some women to come over to the conservative side a little bit. But I think those things will ultimately lead a lot of those people in that green area over to the blue.
And that's because, honestly, and it's not to sound mean, I'm not trying to be mean. It's just I'm a numbers guy, and sometimes numbers sound cruel. The older they are, the more loyal they are to the Democratic Party. But you know what happens to old people over the period of 4 and 8 years? Benny, they die. All right. I mean, that's what happens. Yesterday's super senior black voter who was a super loyal Democrat, because in their mind, they still have the civil rights era is their context. It's their construct that they look at the world through. They're not going to be around forever. And in fact, many of them are gone from 2016, right? So, and the same thing is true of any voter.
He's telling the truth there. And, voting really is more important let's keep it real here. You're voting for your children and the future generations, right? So people that are 70, 80 years old voting. I mean, they're not voting for themselves either. They're voting for what they would like to see in the future. It's not going to directly affect them, but people that are in their 20s and 30s, they're still going to be affected by their votes, and they'll of course they'll still be voting for their children and for their future, but they can still be around and directly feel the effects of this election, in the next 10, 20 years.
White voter, Hispanic voter. So things change. Time moves on. It's like we have this fake impression that black voters are going to be 100 to or 98 to forever. Well, that's not going to happen. There are new people who enter the electorate. They don't have the civil rights mindset. And there's what we refer to as like a cascading effect. You'll see a little trend as time goes on, and then eventually the floodgates will open. That's what happens. That's how trends work. And it's because it's very easy to shame a younger black male who may be thinking about voting for Donald Trump if the shame is like 10-1. But it gets harder when it's 8-1, and it gets real hard when it's 6-1, which is the environment we're in now, where they just don't really care what their aunties think anymore, or they just won't talk about it with them, but they're going to go in there and they're going to vote, and they'll tell a pollster, nah, I'm going to vote for Trump this time. And actually, in our polling consistently, black voters have been among the highest likelihood to say they made a mistake from 2020. So among voters who did vote in 20, they're real honest, and they're like, look, I blew it, man. I was doing better. And it's about the money.
Hey, can we get some credit for that, for admitting the wrongdoings? That's a great thing to hear. People admitting that they voted wrong, that they got bamboozled by the system, and now they're feeling the effects of it, and they want to right their wrongs and make the right decision for the future of this country. People saying that alone, gives me some faith in humanity.
Money. It's about the economy, and it's also about immigration. They feel like that their community has been loyal to the Democratic Party for many, 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 many years. And yet they're being treated like second-class citizens compared to illegal immigrants. And their schools are being filled up. Their neighborhoods are being filled up. And it's like, what about me? Only it's very justified. What about them? What about it?
So you're saying that based on your data that Donald Trump could pull over close to 30% of the black vote.
I think when you look at the undecided, that's the undecided. So of those 10% that told us they were undecided, that's what happens when you lean them and you say, look, if you had to decide today, if I was like forcing you to make a decision, who are you going to go for? And Trump takes it's a smaller sample, of course, but it's not like she's running away with every single undecided. She's not. So I think it is very well within reason that Donald Trump will get a low end of like 15-16% of the black vote and a high end of a little over 20.
How's that compare with 2016 and 2020?
So he got, let's say if you look at the voter validated surveys, he only got around 10% of the black vote in 2020, which was up from 2016 because he did better than Romney, but he's still largely shut out. Hillary had a deep relationship with the black community, and she put the work in over decades. So she got, not like Obama, but certainly an overperformance. But then in 2020, you could see that cracking, and many of us talked about the black male voter, especially younger voters. But in truth, Trump did better with black women in 2022, and had he won the election, we all would have been obsessed over it, because black women voted higher rates than men. In 2016, they were almost parity, but in 2020, black women voted a little bit higher rate. And so, obviously that'll skew the final margin if you don't do as well, or if you don't budge at all, but he did. And he did do better with black women. So he was able to tick up. And just so people understand, I'm not one to overstate the black vote, Benny. Like that is not this poll. All right. Like we had him at 12%. He got like 10%. Like we don't overstate Republican support with minorities. It's not our.
I don't think there's any, over polling done here. You can just look at, all of these street polls that are going around. I've done videos on this before, and you can just see what is actually happening on a ground level. People are tired of the BS, man. I'm telling you. we are going to see the biggest Trump turnout of all time. You guys let me know your thoughts down below. You're watching Unexplained Outlook.
Trend anyway. It's not a track record.